welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast. I'm super excited that you're here. I am recording this episode the day that I am launching it, releasing it. And I wanted to hop in here and just do a fire episode. Fire episodes are episodes that are probably 30 minutes or shorter. And what was really coming up alive and true for me was the Wild Woman Archetype. And I often talk about it directly, indirectly, in a lot of my content. If you follow me on Instagram, my newsletter, listen to any one of my podcasts, or on TikTok, it's really about, to me, this woman, this feminine archetype that is unafraid to be who she is. And I often talk about this wild, authentic self, or healing your core wounds to become your wild, authentic self, or connecting to your true self, which is wild, which is untamable. And I thought it was just so apropos because we just celebrated International Women's Day last Friday, and I attended this beautiful event where it was called Venus, and it was about uplifting other women, showcasing women's beautiful artistry and songwriting and expressing their emotions and their rawness and their authenticity through song, through their voice. And I brought one of my dear friends, my dear sisters, and it was just so beautiful to see people there celebrating, right? And all of the different acts, they were so different from one another, but it just really made me feel alive and connected to other people's expression, which is Shakti, right? Their life force. And so I just wanted to hop on here and share, like, oh, you know what? I'm talking a lot about the Wild Woman this month. I am leading a free tapping circle on the Wild Woman Archetype, which you can access on Eventbrite. I will link it in the show notes. Everything that I talk about here that I do, I will link it in the show notes. So if you don't get it, if you're watching, if you're driving, if you're listening to me on the go on the walk, like, don't worry, I got you. And, you know, I focused on the Wild Woman Archetype for the free tapping circle. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm actually partnering again with the nonprofit organization Healing Puso. They're located in Stockton, and they asked me to do a workshop to celebrate Women's History Month. And so I was sharing the different proposals and themes that I had. The woman who I was speaking to, I was partnering with, she said, you know, I really, really resonate with this Wild Woman Archetype. And I think so many women can really resonate with it too. And so we'd really love for you to share on that and let that be the theme. And so we're going with it. And so I'm leading a beautiful workshop for that community, for the BIPOC community, next Saturday in Stockton. And I'm also going to lead a women's full moon circle on it for my private membership. And I just wanted to really talk about it. And there are so many different ways that you can identify with this. And it's, you know, like, I'll give you a general outline of what the feminine archetype is, of being the wild woman. But we have to give credit, and I'm showing the book here, to Dr. Clarissa Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it's myths and stories of the Wild Woman Archetype. So beautiful, because really without her book, we wouldn't have access to it in such a beautiful way, where there's so much description. And it's crazy. I have bought this book many, many moons ago, but I've yet to thoroughly finish it. I feel like I keep reading the same story over and over again, because it's a book that I will go back to. maybe once a year, or like I'll have a dance with it. Well, I'll continually be reading about it, but then eventually it's okay. Honestly, I'm the type of person that reads 10 books at a time. don't don't ask me. Don't ask me. I mean, right now I'm reading Awakening Shakti. Just because I have a book club, and every single month, or every single month we focus on two Hindu goddesses. And so that is the one that I'm always consistently reading, but I'm always picking up new feminine books. And so this podcast episode is just going to be about the Wild Woman Archetype. And when I think about the Wild Woman Archetype, I think about someone who is unafraid to be herself, right? And I just want you to maybe close your eyes and just let this sink in of, who is she to you? When you hear about the Wild Woman Archetype, what thoughts does it conjure up in your mind? You know, when we think of the word wild, we think mysterious in a way, something to almost be afraid of, because wild means untamed, right? Untamable. And to me, it really just means connecting to your truth. And in a society that gives us projections, stories, beliefs of how we're supposed to be like, it can be pretty hard to find ourselves, to feel pure, right? To truly be ourselves. Are we acting through the lens of how we want to be deemed appropriate to other people, of wanting to fit in so we're not ostracized, you know? And when I look back in my life, I can think about all these moments when I tried to fit in, right? Because being alone is hard. Being alone, not feeling like you have community, can be very difficult and can be lonely. But the wild woman, she is unafraid to have this outsider perspective, right? She's often the one that is questioning the things that are being given to her, the things that are being fed to her. And it's through understanding her truth and who she is, of what feels good for her, what feels right for her, does she feel fully confident and present to question those things and ask, does that make sense to me? I don't need to take it as face value. And so she's unafraid of being alone. She's unafraid of going through the darkness. She is an archetype that knows the feminine way of working with cycles. So she knows what it's like to go inward, right? For winter, what it means to sow your seeds and see it be fertile for spring. And she knows what needs to be done in order for rebirth to happen, right? So often in rebirth, there is this period of death, decomposition, and dying, and dirt, and torture, and suffering. And so she's unafraid of that. She's unafraid of unapologetically and radically being who she is in order for the highest truth. She's devoted to her truth, and she's unafraid to be alone and do the things that connect to her heart and make her heart sing, even if it does not make sense to anybody else. Right? She's the woman that she creates her own song and she dances to the beat of her own song. Right? And so as I'm explaining this to you, I'm wondering, can you call upon any women in your life who you feel as if they are the wild woman archetype. And what is your relationship to them? Are you in awe and inspiration? Or are you curious? How do they get to be the way they are? How do they get to do that? Just not care. Right. And, as I was preparing for my workshops, I was doing the EFT scripting for the free circle event, for the free EFT circle event, and thinking about the moon circle coming up later this month. One of the things that really kept coming up is, and the reason why she does this is out of pure, fierce love for herself, right? Oftentimes we put other people first and we think that their happiness is more important. And it is a dance, right? It is a dance. Sometimes you're working for the good of community. And sometimes you really need to take a step back and say, what is right for me? What is right for my soul? And there are moments when you have to be selfish. And so it's really this test of, can I stand to my truth? Can I voice my truth? Can I state my needs? Can I state my desires, even if it disappoints someone else? Even if it disappoints someone that I love? Even if I'm going to receive backlash, right? And she does it out of pure love for herself because she knows that she will never abandon her truth. If someone doesn't understand, she doesn't need to be understood. That's the difference, right? Oftentimes when I find myself working with clients and, we work on the communication aspect of learning to be vulnerable and intimate, and that requires a lot of sharing who you are and your truth. And sometimes it can be scary, right? If it's a muscle that you're not used to using. And oftentimes, private clients will care more about how it's being received. And so I always have them focus on, what if we just didn't put our focus on that, but put our focus on the act of expressing our truth, no matter how it comes out, no matter how we say it. Because when it's resonant with our voice, our truth, and our heart, then that is enough. We cannot control how other people perceive us. We cannot say things, no matter how many different times, in order for someone to understand us. And so what if we just didn't focus on someone understanding us or seeing our side, or here's a good one, changing, right? Oftentimes we think that we can control how other people will do things, their actions, that we can change them to our thinking. But it's not up to us. The only thing we can control is whether or not we share and state what we say from our truth, from our voice, right? That's a gift when we're actually true to other people. And so really thinking about this archetype in our life of a woman who is able to walk the untraveled path and traverse the new one, create a new one, forge a new one. Even if no one understands, even if it gets lonely. And when I work with a lot of these goddesses and when I share their stories, and as I'm studying also in like different programs that I'm in, one thing that I do notice is there's always a period of death, right? There's always a period of death with Inanna as she's traveling into the underworld. She has to give up a lot of herself. She has to give up who she is in order to be in the underworld, right? She has to come naked, physically, with her things, emotionally, the things that define her. And that's why I love that story so much. It's actually my favorite goddess story. And it resonates so much as she meets Ereshkigal, which is her sister. She's queen of the underworld, but in reality, it's just the dark feminine version of her, right? And so there's this period of becoming naked. And sometimes the initiation is this desire to do it. And when we're on that path, we start to question, why did I want to do this? It's hard. Like, what was the point? What was the point of it? Right? But as we get there and we die, we start to decompose. The dirt starts to the shit has to decompose in order to become fertile for new vision, right? And the wild woman is unafraid of that because she knows it's necessary. It's a woman who knows that whatever is happening is for her highest evolution and expansion. It's also for her liberation, not only for herself, but other people. And so being brave and having this outsider perspective that's not common requires such a different outlook. And it really requires you to go to those depths, right? Of quiet time, of solitude. And, for a long time, I used to think, I was continuously addicted to doing things, totally hustle, because I did not want to sit with my feelings. And living in New York, you can bypass a lot of things. It's very easy to. It's very easy to have FOMO there. It's very easy to continue to just live in the day to day and not question and stop things because you get sucked up in that vortex of energy. And I remember it wasn't until that I moved back to the Bay Area in 2017 where there was nothing to do, right? You're driving in your car, you think a little bit more. Sure, you can say, oh, you're on the subway, you can think, but I just always had earbuds in all the time, listening to music and podcasts and all that stuff, or reading a book. So there was always a way to distract myself, and even though I was sober, you're still not present. I still didn't find myself present. And so it got really hard. Right? It got really, really hard to be able to just go there. And when I had that quiet space and when I had that solitude of no distractions, no friends, right? Having to rebuild my life of, other than family and even then knowing my family again, because I hadn't, been around them maybe only like once a year for the last, 14 plus years or so or more. And so what does that look like? Having the quiet time, having the solitude. And, now slowing down is something that I crave. It's something that I desire. And it's actually something that I spoke with my Jungian analysts, that women do not operate like men. We need the quiet time to go inwards into our inner realm. We are not built like men. And I was telling her, like, I just feel guilty, almost like calling myself lazy. By no means, if you know me, I am not fucking lazy. I am always doing so much stuff. But it's that idea of slowing down and becoming almost indulgent, where I was just resisting that. And it's something that we as women need. We need that. We go through all 4 different seasons in a month, especially when we're menstruating or if we're not, but it's just so crucial for us to reflect and understand, to create space, to integrate, right? That's why you hear in a lot of stories, there's that void. There's and you think about the heroine story, it's like that call to, you answer the wild call, right? That bold call for change. And you go through this period where, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to re-identify who I am. It's going to be a little bit hard. There's like an ego death of you, right? Transcending your ego. And eventually it becomes this moment of being in the void, of being in that period of integration. And what does that look like for you? And then all of a sudden it's just like, it's so necessary for that in order for you to ascend back, right? You need to forget everything of who you were or are or is. That destruction, it's so vital. And so the wild woman archetype, she's unafraid of all of that. She knows about that because she works so well with her cycles. And so, I'm really, really excited to share more about this, about an archetype that has inspired me in many ways. When I think back of, the times where I have had to really embody what that means. The most recent one is leaving my job, but also walking through it, walking through the fire, right? Walking through the fire and knowing that some things just might not make sense to people. And so, wherever you are, how does this impact you? How does this influence you? How does this conjure up different emotions in your life? And how do you relate to it? What's resonant about it? And we can often think that the wild woman is met when we connect to our dark feminine. And the dark feminine is about the unification of those parts of us that are repressed and suppressed, that we hide, that we think other people won't like. And it's all just an acceptance of love, right? Acceptance from our parents, acceptance from people at work, acceptance from our friends, acceptance from lovers, relationships. And I've definitely felt like I compromised a lot of myself in dating people, right? Especially in the early stages of dating, right? And as I start to find my way and know that wild woman and share my truth, it's not give a fuck. I am unafraid to be alone, right? There's something powerful about that, because when you're shining in your truth and when you're comfortable in solitude and when you love your company and it becomes the best company that you keep over another, then that's powerful. There's no reason to acquiesce. There's no reason to second doubt yourself. And so I think to explore her, I really invite you and encourage you to spend time in solitude. Spend time writing. Spend time thinking about, what does she mean to you in your life? How does she show up in your life? Do other people exemplify her? And how do you show your wild woman archetype in the world? Is there room for you to grow and expand into that archetype even further? How can you get support to be that way? Do you even have supportive friends where you feel like you can share from your heart, right? Sometimes, I work with clients who say, I can't really share certain topics with my friends. And so how do you start to cultivate and share more of yourself? Even more, again, like what I alluded to, where it's just focusing on how to use your voice. How do you expand that voice? How to trust in your voice, right? And in a world that often wants to control us and tame us and make us follow a certain way, how do you become radical? Obviously, within the bounds of your domesticity, right? Within the bounds of the rules that you create for yourself, right? Whatever you identify with. Maybe you're a mother. You can't just go out and be nomadic and just leave your child and be like, bye, peace out. I will come back later. But how do you do that? How do you find moments in the day to connect to her? Right? Because she is the one that's alive. She's the one pulsating through you. And she is the one that wants to be expressed and shared. Right? And so I really encourage you to step into your bravery, into your courage, into this outsider perspective, into really being unapologetic for who you are. And if you want to dive deeper, I'm offering 3 and 6 month membership mentorship containers. And it's for the woman who really wants to tap into this archetype, who wants to look at those stories, right? Those stories, maybe they put the muzzle on you, right? So the woman who's really, really ready to step in and just be untamed, be her true unapologetic self and stand up for herself, right? Because when you are able to do this for yourself, and this is something that I found myself more on the path of that transition from maiden to motherhood, then you get to be an advocate, right? So being an advocate for your inner child, and then being an advocate for your actual child, right? And so just really blossoming into that, really blossoming into that, really blossoming into who you are. But I am opening 3 and 6 month containers and would love, love, love to support you. And if you want to dive deeper into this, I do have that free EFT tapping circle. I also have a workshop in Stockton happening. And then I also have my private membership. But that one, yeah, DM me if you're interested. It's not public, but it's private. But anyways, I hope this episode served you, and let me know, leave a review. Would love for you to share this with your friends and DM me. Would love to connect, one-on-one mentorship, and how to access your wild woman. So thank you. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the week. Bye.